Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Friday roundup. Keith is joining me this week because I have been sick all week, and it's the launch for The Marriage You Want, and I have been sick as a dog, and now Rebecca has it. So you are here with me, which is wonderful because this week, our book finally launched.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Even though I was sick in bed and I couldn't do anything about it all day. But it was really encouraging to see everybody posting about it, posting their reviews are coming in on Goodreads and on Amazon, and that's super fun.
Keep them coming, guys.
Keep them coming. We read some on the podcast. I'm not going to do that now because we did do that on the podcast yesterday. So I wanted to talk about something else today. But we did want to say, we are so excited that The Marriage You Want has launched. And please keep reading it because our prayer is that it just really does change the conversation about marriage in the evangelical church. Healthy. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is 2 posts that Focus on the Family made this week.
Okay.
And I thought I would run them by you. Right. We were talking about them in the patron group. I think you might have missed
I know one of them. I didn't know there was 2 different ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the funny thing is, right as our book was launching this week, Focus on the Family posted a graphic that we opened the book with.
It's weird.
Yeah, and it's not our concept. Like we even said in the book, we learned this from our pastor when we got married in premarital counseling, but the idea that, marriage is like a triangle with God at the top and we're at the bottom, and as you move closer to God, you also move closer to each other, which is great. It was just really funny that it came
the timing.
The timing was just funny.
We got married 34 years ago, right? And and we heard that analogy, and I don't think I've heard it again.
Well, I mean, some people in the patron group says they have. They just haven't seen it recently.
Yeah, but it's not exactly swimming around.
But and
then all of a sudden, bang! The day before our book launches, our opening illustration is on the Facebook. Is on page for Focus on the Family, which is weird. And
we know that they've taken my stuff and used it before. There's even been news articles about it, how they've taken my wording about obligation sex without crediting me. So you know what? We're just gonna take it as a win.
Yeah.
Obviously someone at Focus is reading our stuff and is trying to put some healthy stuff out there. So let's just take it as a win.
Yeah, one of the things, Paul in his letters says, I don't care as long as the gospel is preached.
Yeah, exactly.
People are doing it for selfish gain. I don't care as long as the gospel is preached. Yeah. You really embody that, right? You don't care that you get the credit. You just want healthy marriages out there. And so if they're going to start saying healthy things...
Yeah. Now, they did put kind of a weird slant on it that I wouldn't have put on it. But, at least, they're reading our stuff. But a couple of days right after that, came up. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but a ton of people sent me this post. And we were talking about it in our patron group, but I want to read. I want to read this too, okay? And so this was on Focus on the Family yesterday or on Wednesday. I don't know which one. You have the power to raise your husband up. He could be a better leader in his community. He could be better in your home when you're lifting him up and when you are encouraging him instead of beating him down for what he's doing wrong. He will rise to what's expected of him.
Right.
And anyway. Whole bunch of people have commented on this, but I want to take your I want to say 3 things about this, but I want to. Do you have a take first?
Well, I have 2 takes.
Okay, let me hear your 2 takes.
So one of them is the assumption. Again, there's always the assumption that if a woman has anything to say to a man other than "you are amazing, you're awesome," she is a criticizing, nagging, there is
that was one of my points too. Yeah,
there is no subtlety or nuance about how you can correct people in a way that's healthy and helpful, right? Iron sharpening iron is the analogy we use in the book.
Yeah, in the Bible. It comes from the Bible.
Yes, it comes from the Bible.
Crediting our sources.
Husband and wife should be iron sharpening iron.
Yeah.
In the evangelical world, the husband may be iron, but the wife is a polishing cloth. That's all she is. Yeah. She's supposed to make him better. And that's the second point is...
And a polishing cloth makes someone look good, but it doesn't actually make them functional.
Yeah. But the whole point is that and that's the second point, is that she's not her own story. He could be a better leader. He could do all these things if you helped him. What about her being a leader? What about her doing the stuff that God wants her to do? Why isn't he supporting her? The default is always she's going to support him because he's the story. I got to write a blog post about this because it's just so...
Yeah. I didn't have that as one point. That's a good point.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing I see all the time is that they talk about how you say that we're not equal because when you say that one's the leader and one's the servant, that's not equal. But you say it's not equal, but it's just different roles, right? But it's like, but the role of her is to always care for him, right? Like that, it's not equal. If you have eyes to see, you can see that this is not equal.
Also, but even going with the leadership thing, so if she has the power to make him a better leader, by what she does, who's actually leading in that relationship?
Oh yeah.
You know, she is like, it's so crazy.
So they say leadership is sacrificial leadership. But the only person sacrificing is the woman, ultimately, in the way that they talk. He's not sacrificing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. One of my big things, and I noticed a bunch of people were saying this, is what is your source for this? What is your citation for the claim that if you encourage him, he will rise to what's expected of him?
I know what verse that's from. That's from Misogyny 24/7.
Yeah. Because there is, like, think about this. The things that we reward, and we know this for raising kids, okay? When you reward behavior, that behavior is done repeatedly. Like it's reinforced, and so they're going to do it more. Okay, so the things that we reward tend to be done more. And so if you are encouraging him when he is acting badly, if you're being like, oh, you're so amazing, oh, you're so great, oh, let me call out how great you are. When he is acting badly, then all you're doing is reinforcing the bad behavior. Now, of course, there's proper ways to confront him that don't involve being horrible and yelling and lambasting. Of course, we could do this in a respectful way for both people. Absolutely. But it's like either women are encouraging is super nice or they're berating. And it's like, well, there is that other thing.
But that would assume that she's his equal and she has something to contribute. And that's not allowed.
Exactly. it very much reminds me of Josh Howerton saying, if you give him a crown, he'll become a king. And it's like, okay, but there is no proof of that anywhere, and it goes against everything we know about psychology. Like it doesn't work. And so, if your husband is acting inappropriately, it is okay to call that out. And not calling it out and encouraging him instead is not going to make him into a good leader. It just isn't. It doesn't work. What's also really funny is so many people commented, and then Meta AI.
Oh, yes.
The Meta AI summarized the comments, and I want to read to you what Meta AI said. Commenters disagree with this post message, arguing that it places undue burden on women to fix their husbands' shortcomings. Many expressed concerns about toxic Christian teaching, enabling abusive behavior, and neglecting mutual responsibility in marriage. They emphasize individual accountability, mutual respect, and God's role in personal growth. Yeah. Because you know what? She can't make him grow. And this is the big thing. God gave us free will. And so if your husband is choosing to be abusive, if your husband, or your wife, by the way, is choosing to be terrible to you, like, yes, we can do things to upset those dynamics, but we cannot change their attitude towards us. We really can't. Like, people have free will, and we have to accept that. It's crazy. The other thing we found in The Marriage You Want was how often both spouses had to remind their spouse of repeating tasks, right? And this happened for both spouses, but it happened about twice as often for women. But there were, I think it was like about a quarter or a third of men also had to remind their wives, right? So more women had to remind husbands of repeating tasks, but men had to remind women too. So, like, we both can deal with this. But the thing is, like, if you have to constantly remind your spouse to do things they are supposed to be doing, right? Why is that her problem? And we label that nagging. We label that nagging.
And I was going to say that. We call this nagging. But have you ever heard about a nagging husband? Have you ever heard of it? No, right? I mean, this is the implicit biases that are in the water that people refuse to see. Right? Like, I have to remind you of stuff. You have to remind me of stuff. But you're a nagger. And I'm showing leadership in reminding you. It's ridiculous, the double standard.
And if she has to constantly remind him of something, it means that he isn't doing what he's supposed to be doing. And it is okay to confront that. And anyway, we talk about how to do that practically in The Marriage You Want, just so that you know. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. And a whole bunch of people sent me that post from Focus on the Family. And if I don't address it, then I know that dozens more people are going to send it to me, because I looked at my inbox today and another 10 people have sent it to me. So yeah, I did see it. And I do think it's bad. Okay.
You can help each other grow and be better people if you start with the assumptions that that you both matter, you are both equal, you are on a level playing field, all those things in place, then you can help each other learn to grow.
Yeah.
We can correct each other. We can be iron sharpening iron. But when you are specifically teaching that the role of a wife is to never criticize ever and just make him look good even when he isn't good, and when he's specifically doing things that are harmful, manifest into being his making better choices by encouraging the bad choices he's making.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Because it is manifest theology. It is manifest theology. Call it out and it will happen. It's like, and the people who are claiming this would be the first to say that they don't believe in manifest theology.
I don't think most of them understand what manifest theology is.
Anyway, it's just crazy. Okay, I have something else to talk about.
Okay.
A little more serious. I mean, that was serious, but a little more serious. So Karen Swallow Pryor, who is going to be hosting a webinar for us in 2 weeks. I am doing a webinar with Beth Allison Barr called Go Be Free, and Karen Swallow Pryor is going to be hosting that discussion about our new books, The Marriage You Want and Becoming the Pastor's Wife of Beth Barr. So that's going to be awesome. Anyway, she caused quite a stir on Threads when she posted this week, which I thought was really, really interesting. She said, Dave Bratt, the senior VP at Liberty University, which is one of the largest Christian universities in the United States, said this on a local news interview about tariffs. And he said that tariffs are following reciprocity, which is the golden rule, which he defined as whatever you do to us, we're going to do to you.
Right. Okay.
That's not the golden rule. What is the golden rule, honey?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah.
Whatever you do to us, I'm going to do to you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's called eye for eye and tooth for tooth. And that's exactly what Jesus was combating.
And this really, really bothers me because these huge organizations like Liberty, like Focus on the Family, like all of these, they're saying things that aren't of Jesus.
Yeah. Over
and over and over again. And we have to call them out and we have to confront them because this isn't okay. And it's getting us into a mess. Now, last week, on the podcast, we ended the podcast just talking about how difficult, or not the podcast, but this Friday roundup, just how difficult it is as Canadians right now. And many of you expressed great support, which I really appreciate. But a couple people said, can you please stop talking about politics? And I just want to address that for a few minutes, okay? I don't talk about politics. I really don't. I haven't. I've stayed away from it for so long because we want our one thing to be our one thing, which is let's change the evangelical conversation about sex and marriage. But right now, we are living in a world where the American government is constantly threatening to annex Canada over and over again. They've doubled down on it this week. Your president even talked about it in a meeting with a NATO chief. And multiple spokespeople have been talking about it. Keith, if 90% of Canadians agree with our new prime minister who is being sworn in today, Mark Carney, that we will never be part of the U.S.,
right,
then what is the actual proper word for annex?
Oh, invade.
Invade.
Conquer, take over.
War.
Right.
He's talking about war.
Yeah.
Okay? And when your country is threatening to go to war against our country, and you say, can we please not talk about this? Because it makes me uncomfortable. That really isn't okay.
We're a little uncomfortable up here.
Yeah, like I am waking up in the middle of the night. Like I woke up at 4:00 in the morning and I couldn't get back to sleep till 5:30 because I'm making contingency plans in my brain of how I'm going to protect my grandchildren when we are attacked. And the conversation that Canadians are having right now is, he's not really going to do that, is he? But the thing is, we can't afford not to take this seriously. And so while we desperately hope it won't happen, and while we can see all kinds of reasons why it wouldn't happen, we can't afford not to take it seriously. And so if it ever did happen, I would be so upset at myself if I didn't use every opportunity to do what I could to make it not happen. And so I do want to say a few things today, if that's okay, and just do a little bit of fact checking. So let's talk about the tariff thing that Dave Bratt said, okay? The U.S. is not putting tariffs on Canada to reciprocate against Canada because the U.S. started this. The U.S. and Canada have a free trade agreement, which Trump has said is terrible, and that it's an awful free trade agreement. Do you know who signed that free trade agreement, Keith?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump did.
Yeah.
And he's complaining about dairy tariffs. Do you know who put those dairy tariffs into effect, Keith?
Yeah, there's Donald Trump. Donald Trump's, he hates the deal that he created.
Right. And he's complaining that we put 255% tariffs on milk, on dairy. The thing is, those tariffs don't kick in. There is a tariff-free zone where we can import dairy up to a certain point, and then there's tariffs. There has never been a year where we have even reached the tariffs because we don't import that much from the U.S. Quite frankly, our standards are so much higher for our dairy that we don't want U.S. milk dairy. So it's like it never even reached that point, but he's making a huge deal out of tariffs, which he negotiated. And then let's talk about fentanyl. The other thing is, I think what he is trying to do is he's trying to get a, like if he's going to invade us, there has to be a national security reason for it. He can't just invade. And so he's trying to make it look like there's a national security reason. And he's talking about drugs and about how we have fentanyl factories everywhere that the police aren't doing anything about, and how we're run by Mexican cartels. None of this is true. Yeah. And if you look at the amount of fentanyl which is seized at the Canadian border coming into Canada versus the fentanyl that is seized at the border going into the United States, it is far more is coming into Canada than is going from Canada to the US. The opioid deaths in the US right now are 15.8 per capita per 100,000 versus 6.4 in Canada. Canada does not have a fentanyl problem that we are exporting to the US. The US has a fentanyl problem that is being exported to Canada. And we are the ones who are being hurt. We also have gun problem that is coming in from the US. In fact, if you look at the safest countries in the world, I looked this up. Canada places in all the studies rank it based on different things, okay? So some studies put us at 3, I found us at 3rd, at 10th, or at 8th. Most of those studies, the US didn't even appear because it was only the top 20 developed countries, and the US wasn't even on it. When I did find a list of 86 countries, the US placed 47th. Yeah. So Canada is not a risk to your safety, you are a risk to ours. And I just wanted to make that clear because he's trying to drum things up. And so yes, I would so prefer not to talk about politics. I have not talked about politics forever. But
but every time we've talked about this whole rhetoric about Canada becoming a 51st state, we get varying responses from other Christians in the States. Like, oh, he's just joking. That's not a joke.
No.
That's not the way a professional leader of a free country behaves. You don't make jokes like that.
You don't make jokes about going to war.
Oh, it's a negotiation tactic. That's even worse. I mean, and then, well, why are you guys you're talking about this like it's going to happen. It's never going to happen. You're just drumming up the problem. You're making it sound worse. It's like, don't talk to us. Talk to the guy who's saying that stuff. And I know that, we don't like to talk about politics, but as Christians, there should be some things that, regardless of your party, you say that is wrong. That is evil. That is empire. That is the encroachment of human kingdoms trying to cause suffering and damage and harm. And we as Christians, regardless of our nationality, regardless of our political affiliations, we need to stand up and say what is right and do what is just.
Yeah. And it's not okay to threaten war. It just isn't. So please watch news sources other than just American. Every day I read the BBC. Australian Broadcasting Corporation, you can read Le Monde from French. From France, you can read that in English. Read the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Read news that isn't just your own, get a more international view. And stand up and talk to your representatives because please don't let it come to this, please. We've been your friends for so long. I've been to all 50 states. I've spoken in most of them. This is crazy. And I can't believe this is happening. And I want to be able to sleep again. So, thank you. Here we are, calling for healthy, biblical, evidence-based advice for your sex life and your marriage from the True North, strong and free. And may we ever be so in both those cases. Thanks. We'll see you again next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.